Are you seriously doing the cooking thing again? Yeah? You just did it yesterday. I'm out of ideas. I gotta do something. So, dude, do you want some? What is going on, guys? So today we are back with another video diving deeper into the Jungle Cup. And, well, it's a versus video. It's not really a deep dive, but I guess we're diving deeper into the Jungle Cup. I guess, I don't know. So today we're actually going to be taking a look at, this was one of the more interesting verses that I saw, considering that we've already done a deep dive on these two Pokemon. I figured it would actually be pretty smart to go through and actually check these two out. And of course, this warranted a spreadsheet to be made so that I could get some more in-depth numbers. As always, that spreadsheet will be down in the comments below. If I'm late in posting that comment, I schedule these videos, by the way. I schedule these to come out as long as I'm ahead on videos. I schedule them to come out, and I can't put comments on a video if it's scheduled. It just doesn't let me. So as soon as it goes live, I will try to remember to post the spreadsheet in the comments. If I'm late, just yell at me. Just yell. I promise I'll hear you. I have big ears. So today we're actually going to be taking a look at Breloom versus Heracross. And I hope Heracross wins. I'm just going to say that straight out of the gate because Heracross is amazing. And Breloom's cool, but he's not Heracross. So first off the bat, let's actually compare a couple of these base stats here and try to get a small idea of what we're working with here. So on the Breloom side, we do have an attack of 241, a defense of 144, and a stamina of 155. And on the Heracross side, we do have an attack of 234, a defense of 179, and a stamina of 190. So, straight off the bat, I can tell you that Heracross has 25% more bulk than Breloom does, which is pretty impressive, and has 12% more in stat product than Breloom does. So, just off of base stats alone, I will give it to Heracross. That's an unbiased opinion. It's just based on the numbers. But when it comes to the moveset that we're going to be using, these movesets come straight from the deep dives. If you by chance haven't watched the deep dives and you want a little bit more in-depth look at both of these Pokemon individually, definitely go check those out. But in terms of their movesets, Dynamic Punch for me is way more enticing than Close Combat. I will say that. So let's actually get straight into some shielding situations here. We're actually going to take a look at the entire cup at this point. We're actually going to put Breloom's shielding situation right here underneath our Breloom board. And we're actually going to put Heracross's right here underneath his as well. And in the first situation, we do have the 0 versus 0, which is where neither Pokemon have any shields, whether it's myself or my opponent. We actually have a 45.5 for our Breloom here, but we have a 59.7 for our Heracross. So Heracross does barely inch us out there. Then we do have the 2 versus 0, which is where I have both shields this time, but my opponent doesn't have any. We actually end up winning 79.1 for the Breloom with an 87.3 for the Heracross. So Heracross does take it again. Then we do have the 0 versus 2, which is where I don't have any shields, but my opponent actually has both shields. We actually have a 17.9 for Breloom here with a 20.1 for Heracross. So here again, Heracross is taking that one. Next, we do have the 2 versus 2, which is where I have both shields and my opponent has both shields. We actually have a 59% flat for Breloom with a 61.9 for Heracross. So straight away there, the 2 versus 2 and the 0 versus 0 are kind of like opening and closing type situations respectively, and both of these Pokemon do tend to favor opening just a little bit more. There's a bigger gap in between Breloom's opening and closing shield scenario, but there's not as much with Heracross, and I think that actually just helps because we have a little bit more bulk there. Our last shield scenario that we're actually going to look at here is the 1 versus 1, which is where Heracross takes it again. 52.2 for our Breloom here with a 54.5 for Heracross. Definitely got to give every single one of these shield scenarios to our Heracross for the entire cup. So what happens if we go up against the meta? If we just choose the 22 meta Pokemon outlined by PvPoke, how do we do? Well, in the 0 versus 0 here, we actually have a 40.9 for both Pokemon, so we're actually tied there. In the 2 versus 0, we actually have a 77.3 for Breloom and an 81.8 for Heracross, so it does lean slightly towards Heracross there. In the 0 versus 2, we do have an 18.2 for our Breloom with a 9.1 for Heracross. Very interesting. So we actually end up losing a point for Heracross here. Now, interestingly enough, these weren't like, it wasn't like Breloom just picked up a couple of extra wins. These actually shuffled just a little bit. So, for instance, Breloom wins here up against Alolan Graveler, Alolan Golem, Magnezone, and Credilli. Whereas Heracross only actually ends up beating Magneton, not Magnezone for some reason, and Credilli as well. He will actually end up still losing to Graveler and Golem, whereas Breloom can actually pick up those 2 battles there. Our next shield scenario is the 2 versus 2, which is where Breloom actually has 40.9, but Heracross has the 45.5. So Heracross takes it again there. And our last one is the 1 versus 1, which is where we both have a 40.9 here as well. So very interesting. Out of all of that, what ended up spawning was a spreadsheet. So I highly encourage you to go check out this spreadsheet for yourself. Like I said, it will be linked in the comments. That's where, down in the comments below. And I highly encourage you to just check out, because if you're debating on which one of these you want to use, or possibly if you have access to one but not the other, then maybe it would be fair to know the matchups between them. So just like we did in the shielding scenarios, let's actually start with our cup here. We're actually going to look at every single Pokemon up against our Heracross and our Breloom here. As you can see in the first column right here, we do have our defending Pokemon. In the next column over, we do have Breloom. The next column over, we do have Heracross. And then in the 4th and 5th column, we do have 2 results columns. So the first result column is actually going to tell you which Pokemon is just preferred in that situation. So up against Abomasnow here, you can see Heracross actually has a higher battle rating of 781 versus Breloom only having a 645. But since both Pokemon still end up winning, there's not too big of a variance there. Yeah, Heracross is still going to do a tad bit better, but it's still a win-win. Both Pokemon are still going to win. But if we look down here at the Anorith matchup, you can see that Breloom actually ends up tying up against Anorith, while Heracross actually has a battle rating of 620. So Heracross here again would still be preferred, and it actually tells you in that second results column, Heracross is actually just going to flat out win that, whereas the other Pokemon in this scenario would be Breloom, would either tie or lose. If the results of the battle shift drastically from a tie to a win, or from a loss to a win, or even in the reverse, it will tell you which Pokemon is actually straight up better, because you will actually add a win into your win column. So of course we can't go through every single one of these in this video. Like I said, I do highly encourage you to check this out. Just for some quick numbers here, in the very bottom we do have a results tab, and as you can see, Breloom actually is preferred 48 times out of the entire cup, whereas Heracross is actually preferred 82 times. So for what it's worth, Heracross is definitely looking a lot better up against the entire cup. But now let's shift into the meta here. So same exact setup here. In our first column here, we do have all of our subject defending Pokemon from the meta here. And then we do have Breloom and Heracross in the next 2 columns. And then we do still have our 2 results columns. It works exactly the same as the entire cup sheet. So up against our entire meta here, you can actually see the results at the very bottom show Breloom is preferred 9 times compared to Heracross actually being preferred 13 times. So even in this scenario, there's a couple of interesting ones that I do want to point out here. You can see up against the Breloom matchup, Breloom of course is going to tie up against himself, whereas Heracross actually beats him. And in the actual Raichu matchup, this one was kind of interesting to see. Breloom actually goes into a winning scenario, whereas Heracross actually just flat out loses. kind of interesting. I thought that one was kind of cool and definitely wanted to point that out there. So it's kind of interesting to see this type of situation. Of course, you do have the lose-lose, the win-wins there. If both Pokemon still end up losing, you can just kind of see, oh, Heracross possibly would do better, but I'm still going to lose even if I choose Heracross. There's not too much of a variance inside of the meta, but I definitely think that it reflects really highly of Heracross inside the entire cup. Heracross seems to be way better in terms of just generally covering a lot more anti-meta, a lot more off-meta picks that people might be bringing, whereas Breloom possibly won't do as well as Heracross, but in the meta scene, they're both going to do very, very well. They're both going to be extremely strong. So in terms of these two Pokemon, I do, as objectively as I possibly can, have to give some more credit to Heracross rather than Breloom here, because Heracross actually ends up taking it in a lot more of our shield situations. It has more favorable matchups up against the entire cup, and it's pretty much very similar in the meta picks. It's only like, it beats Breloom, yeah, but it's gonna fall to the Raichu, so it just kind of like, in the meta, like, I'd say they're pretty even up against the meta, which is what I said in the Breloom deep dive, and I still think that's very true. But when you start to open the doors and you look outside of the meta and you look at possibly all the off-meta Pokemon that people could be bringing, Heracross may make more sense there, whereas Breloom is definitely still a valid option. So that is actually going to be it for this versus video, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching. Always remember that if you do have an idea for a versus video, you can throw it down in the comments below. I don't have a spreadsheet for this. I just kind of scroll through old comments and see whichever versus videos look interesting. So that's actually going to be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks so much for watching. Like I said, as always, if you like to like videos, you can do that. But if you don't, you can be that guy. Otherwise, let me know what you have to say down in the comments below. And until our next video, I will catch you then.